Good morning, sunshine. Happy Monday. I hope your weekend was nice and relaxing. Welcome back to Tiger's Occult Books and Research. I'm your friendly internet paranormal researcher and investigator, Dr. Morris, and today's entity is from the Mayan people of the Yucatan Peninsula. It's called the Alux. Plural is Alux'ob. Again, referring to our three main reference texts, Illy's Encyclopedia of Spirits, Bain's Encyclopedia of Spirits and Ghosts in World Mythology, and Guiley's Encyclopedia of Ghosts and Spirits, and a smattering of further research, I'm going to tell you where it comes from, how to identify it, what it does, we'll address any ethical concerns, then we'll make sure we go over safe interaction with the entity if you should ever come across it during your travels. So let's get into the origins. These little fellas, they come to us from the Mayan mythology, generally from the Yucatan Peninsula, Belize, Guatemala. Oddly, most of the actual text I've been able to find is more modern sources, but some of the imagery I've found for you is quite old, mainly sculptures from the area. Speaking of imagery, that brings us to the physical identification methods, and this one's actually pretty neat. On February 25th, 2023, President Andre Manuel Lopez Obrador actually tweeted a picture of what may be a modern sighting of an Alux. He said, "I'm sharing two photos from our inspection of the Maya train construction. One, taken by an engineer 3 days ago, apparently of an Alux. The other, by Diego Prieto, of a splendid pre-Hispanic sculpture at Ekbalam. Everything is mystical." Now, there's plenty of debate about whether the picture is legitimate or not. I'm not going to bother weighing in on the issue. If it's true, we have a sighting of an Alux. If it's not true, we still have an illustration of what an Alux might look like, because it does seem fairly accurate to the descriptions. The general description of an Alux is that it's a knee-high entity, human-like in general configuration, dressed in traditional Mayan clothing, generally considered to be a nature spirit. There's some debate in some circles about if the Alux is a true spirit or it's actually a cryptid, but either way, it's usually described as having mass and being corporeal. As we can see in these images, they're rather unremarkable besides their small stature. They're human-like entities. Some stories claim they're usually invisible unless they deliberately choose to appear to humans, at which point their appearance seems to be about as variable as any other human. So, what we're going with on the CDI classification system here is that this is a Class 5 corporeal trickster. Not a particularly harmful one, but one to be wary of nonetheless. So let's move on to folklore, tales, and legends. The precise origin of the Alux is rather unclear. Most cultural historians are pretty split between the idea that either they were pre-Hispanic entities or they're the result of mixing European and Mayan cultures. Their notable similarities with the Fae, or leprechauns, prompt speculation that perhaps pirates originating from Britain and Ireland operating in the Caribbean possibly influenced the development of this legend. So, long story short, we don't know exactly where it came from, but we do know that at least this entity, the Alux, with that term attached to it, is from the Yucatan Peninsula. More stories about Alux'ob paint them as mischievous entities, but not actively malicious. Some of the pranks are actually rather amusing, so long as they're not happening to me anyway. People will find their cooking fires extinguished, pots and pans thrown into the yard. Nothing immediately hazardous to life and limb, but inconveniences. Yucatan Today says that Alux were made from clay and placed in a tree from which they came to life. Because they're nature spirits, it's wise to ask their permission and give offerings of food and prayers before wandering off into the jungle or building anything in the jungle, lest you fall victim to their pranks. Even if properly sated with food and prayers, sometimes they can get a little distracted and slip back into their pranks, but so long as you keep them fed, they'll generally knock it off. Sometimes Alux'ob will appear directly and ask travelers or farmers for an offering. If they are given what they want, the Alex will become helpful for a time, helping the crops grow for farmers or protecting travelers from thieves, that sort of thing. If the offering is refused, well, I'd expect to find your pots and pans in your yard, or if you're traveling, you may fall victim to a wedgie or something equally ridiculous. As for the ethical considerations, well, like I said, they're pranksters and tricksters, but they're not violently malicious like, say, an Abacy, for instance. If you'd like a refresher on the Abacy, I'm going to put the link up in the corner for you to peruse at your leisure. But as far as the Alux is concerned, I don't think they're actively threatening or harmful, just an inconvenience. It's probably best to just give them a snack and go on about your day. Speaking of snacks, let's go over safe interaction methods. As previously mentioned, they seem appeased by snacks and the like, but there's also an interesting addendum. The Alux house, like the one pictured here, they're tiny little 1 or 2 story shrines dotting the Yucatan Peninsula called Catal Alux, or Houses of the Alux. If you're farming and you've got an Alux and you've fed them, they'll help you out, sure, but only for about 7 years. I guess they get bored after that, and they'll go right into tricks and mayhem. If you've got an Alux house, before those 7 years are up, you're going to want to close the windows and doors of that Alux house, sealing the Alux inside. I guess if they're sealed inside their house, that makes it hard for them to, I don't know, unroll all of your toilet paper or something. Yeah, and the last point to be made. Apparently, it's a bad idea to name them aloud, because that's said to summon an aggravated Alex from its home to yours, and they're not happy when you do that. The phrasing in this is somewhat awkward. I'm not sure if they're referring to using the term Alex in general, or if they're referring to an Alex's specific name. If these fellas are similar to the Fae, I would make an educated guess that it's referring to a specific name. The Fae have a whole thing about names. Also, if they're similar to Fae, I'd guess that iron might be a decent method of dispatching an Alex, but I don't want you to go that far. They're not dangerous enough that you're going to have to shoot them or anything like that. Maybe bonk them with a wrought iron fire poker or something. Anyway, that's about all the information I was able to dig up about Alux'ob. I hope you found it informative. As always, like, comment, share with your friends, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find me on all of the regular alt text sites as well, depending on how tight you've got your tinfoil hat. If you have an entity that you need me to cover, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. Till next time, fellas, I'll see you down here at the lab.